maps that highlight milestones of law and liberty right across London, invoking a special relationship between London and this great charter. And yet, Magna Carta isn't mentioned in King John. The audience will be infused by the idea of Magna Carta, not least because it's written there in the corner. Might be small and, positioned out of the way, but I argue that it does act as a reminder of the legacy of Magna Carta, even if the play itself doesn't refer to either the document or the act of sealing it. So, a quick summary of the play. It kind of jumps through the marriage of Blanche and Louis in 1200, the capture of Prince Arthur, who is the nephew of King John in circa 1203, the relationship between the Pope and Pope Innocent III and King John, where the kind of excommunication was placed on King John circa 1208 to 1213, followed by the Barons' War, which was aided by the French invasion in 1215, and it even ends with the death of King John, but no mention of the Magna Carta, right, which must have happened somewhere before King John died. It should appear between the act of submitting to the Pope in Act 5, Scene 1, and the Barons' War. The difference between those two things in the play is a matter of about 22 lines, in which King John talks about how he voluntarily submits to the Pope and is saying, kind of asking for forgiveness from the Pope, but also allowing the Pope to take some role again in the running of England. So the play, I argue, toys with the idea of an anxiety around legitimate power, various ways in which King John can get consent from barons and people, and the placing of limitations on the power, and yet still the play does not mention Magna Carta. But perhaps, and what I'm trying to seek to convince you, is that the idea of the Magna Carta that we've heard about today, the limitations on power, resonate throughout the play. Indeed, in the kind of late 1800s, we see the first filmed, well, it was the first film of a Shakespeare play, in fact, happened to be King John, but it was Tree's representation of King John that had two tableaus, which kind of in film would be stills where people kind of come on and they reenacted the signing of Magna Carta. So the Magna Carta was visibly placed within the play in order to respond to audiences' expectations. So you see from the early 1800s you have Kemble, who did a production of King John, apologising that the Magna Carta wasn't in the play. And you can kind of see throughout the 1800s rewritings. So in 1800, a guy called Valpy rewrote King John to include a section where he compares the tyranny of France to the liberties of England, a direct commentary on the French Revolution. And he says, "And has not John sealed the great charter of our liberties? Blessed with our rights, we urge no further claim. The English laws are written in our hearts, and we will not change them." None of this appears in Shakespeare's original text, but that's not to suggest that Magna Carta isn't there. So there are some kind of textual references to ideas of kingship, to ideas of legitimate rule, and to kind of ideas of arbitrary rule, I guess. And what I'm trying to suggest is that using language, Shakespeare gets the audience angry, riled up, reacting to King John's use of power. It seemingly doesn't have any limits placed upon it, and the audience respond to that. So you have Constance, who is Prince Arthur's mother, petitioning the papal legate for assistance after she finds out that King Arthur has been taken by King John and he will subsequently die, which doesn't know that bit. And she cries, "For he that holds his kingdom holds the law, therefore since the law itself is perfect wrong." Constance suggests then that the King of England holds the law, implying that the king is above the law and he can use it at his whim. This, she says, makes the law wrong. In this respect, it becomes, and it has been suggested, that it kind of invokes a tool of violence rather than a tool of justice, because the king can use this law at his whim against Prince directly then against Constance. This critique of John's power and the use of law, I would argue, invokes that spirit of Magna Carta